Now that you know more about the aim and purpose of Befrienders, the befriending approach in exploring feelings, the philosophy or logic behind it, and the role of a befriender, we can then talk about self-awareness before we link the two together. Self-awareness is learning more about ourselves, seeing ourselves from different angles or perspectives, knowing our abilities and limitations. Self-awareness is about being aware of our emotions and how it can influence the way we think and what we do. Knowing our own distinctive character. Knowing what we need and want in life, and when we don't achieve them, how it will affect us. Self-awareness is being aware of our own values, beliefs, biases, goals, dreams, and ideals. Knowing what drives us to do what we do. Self-awareness is knowing when we are feeling overly stressed, too anxious, or very depressed, and having methods to calm and relax ourselves. Self-awareness is behaving in ways that you want others to know you by. Self-awareness is being constantly mindful that what you say, do, and think has an effect not just on yourself, but on others too. Basically, self-awareness is about trying to understand ourselves better or going on a journey of self-discovery. It is a skill that all of us can develop. Some of you might already be practicing self-awareness in your daily lives without realizing it. An example. Let's say today is the first death anniversary of your mother and you're overwhelmed with sadness. You feel lonely, lost, and miserable because you miss your mother tremendously. Sadness is the emotion. Lonely, lost, and miserable are what you are feeling. The reason being, you miss your mom's love and care immensely. An example here could be when you go for a blood test and the doctor says your blood sugar level is too high, so you need to cut out sweet things. But you love desserts and not ready to give them up, so practice denial by insisting it's lack of the exercise that's causing the blood sugar to be high and not your favorite desserts. Here, let's say your married girlfriends who don't work think motherhood is more important than a woman's career. For you, it's tough looking after your 2 young kids while being head of your department. But you're determined to have both and don't let your girlfriend's beliefs influence you. For example, you are aware pursuing your hobby of painting gives you a sense of balance and calm. So you make sure you set aside some time to paint whenever you can. Example, as a marketing manager, you're good at selling, but not good at socializing with clients. So you get your juniors to have dinner with clients after you've closed the deals. Example, you value mutual respect in your relationships, so you make sure you conduct yourself in a way that would earn you respect from others. When others see you behave in an upright manner, they will make sure they behave in a mutually respectful way too. Example, when young, your parents always compared you with your sibling, who was more academically inclined. This made you feel stupid and not good enough. You now have a fulfilling job as a graphic designer, tapping on your artistic talents. You now realize your parents, who were teachers, were imposing their values on you when you were young. So now you don't hold anything against them for their past behavior. You are comfortable with yourself, accepting your own imperfections. You can listen to others, communicate openly without judgment, and can also trust and respect others. You're able to see other people's viewpoints and thus able to sense what they are feeling. You're able to treat others kindly, respectfully, and decently, whatever their circumstances. You have control of your temper. You realize what can set you off and have taken measures. Example, count to 10 before you open your mouth to respond. You have a positive outlook in life and try to be optimistic. You don't let challenges get in your way, as you know how to manage them. You conduct yourself in a mindful, respectful, and rational manner with others and treat yourself with love and compassion. Another interpretation or explanation of self-awareness is by Daniel Goleman, a renowned psychologist who's written a few books on emotional intelligence. He says, self-awareness is required if you want to understand what emotional awareness is. To accurately assess yourself, you need self-awareness. To develop self-confidence, you require self-awareness. According to Daniel Goleman, emotional awareness is knowing which emotions you are feeling and why. For example, at my daughter's graduation, I felt happiness, pride, and relief. These are the emotions I felt. Why? Because I felt I had fulfilled my role as a responsible parent, proud my daughter was graduating from a top university, and relieved I didn't have to pay any more educational fees. Let's say you've had a long, busy day at work and have just come home feeling tired, hungry, and agitated. These are your emotions or feelings. When the food on the table, which is normally cooked by your mother-in-law, is not up to your expectations, these are your thoughts, you might get irritated and say something ungrateful, your behavior, when normally you're very appreciative of your mother-in-law's cooking. Do you realize when you feel appreciated or noticed, let's say by your lecturer, you will then be more motivated to participate in that lecturer's class and get better grades in his or her tests. Likewise, if you have a very critical boss who makes you feel incompetent in your job, you'll not be motivated to work harder or improve because you know that whatever you do is never going to be good enough for him or her. Let's say your goal is to provide financial security for your young family, and you believe this can be achieved through hard work, determination, and integrity at the workplace. If one of your managers told you that there is an easier and faster way of making money, but it means swindling the company you work for, would you do it? Values help us understand between right and wrong. They are a compass that help us make decisions and choices. And if you do not set yourself goals to work towards and don't have strong moral values, you could easily fall into a life of crime or drift aimlessly through life. Daniel Goleman says, to be able to assess yourself accurately, you must be aware of your own strengths and weaknesses. Example, before you apply for a particular job or not, you must know your own capabilities and abilities. To assess whether you have progressed in your life, you must be reflective and willing to learn from your past experiences. To assess whether you have improved, you must be open to frank feedback, different viewpoints, acquiring knowledge constantly, and want to develop or grow continuously. When you are very aware of your own abilities, character, strengths, judgment, and power, you will then have confidence to present yourself in a positive and self-assured manner. You will also be brave and assertive enough to voice your viewpoint even when you know it will not be well received. When you have self-confidence, you can take a firm stand on things and make rational decisions. Some of you might still be wondering, why do we talk about self-awareness? And how is it related to me wanting to become a befriender? Hopefully, the next 2 slides will make it clear how self-awareness and the befriending approach are linked and why you need self-awareness to be an effective befriender. We have learned about the befriending approach in the earlier video and just finished learning about self-awareness. Now, I've put the main points of the befriending approach and explanation of what self-awareness is on the same slide for easier comparison. To recap, in the befriending approach, we allow callers to fully express their feelings for a deeper understanding of themselves and realize how their feelings influence their thoughts and behavior. Self-awareness is realizing how our feelings influence our thoughts and behavior and knowing which emotions we are feeling and why. In the befriending approach, we are empowering our callers to be able to make their own decisions on whatever problem they are struggling with and have the confidence to move forward. Self-awareness is having the belief or confidence to make sound and rational decisions. Do you notice the similarities highlighted in blue? Both are very much about feelings or emotions and how it influences or affects our thoughts, how we think, and our behavior, what we say and do. Once we can identify and understand the feelings or emotions we are having, we can then manage them better and thus have the confidence to make rational decisions to move forward in our lives. Some of you might have asked, I've signed up to be trained as a helpline volunteer. Why is the first topic on self-awareness? What's the link between befriending, that's what befrienders do, and self-awareness? Let me explain. In order to be an effective befriender, in the best position to help others, it is crucial to know ourselves first, to be in touch with our own feelings. If we do not recognize the emotions we are feeling and why, then how will we be able to spot them in our callers? If you're not able to describe your own feelings, you will not be able to help your caller describe his or hers. Remember the slide with the essential qualities of the helper? One of the essential qualities is empathy, or the ability to see things from other people's viewpoint and sense how they are feeling. I shall be explaining more about empathy later on in this video. The ability to empathize is a crucial skill to be an effective befriender. As long as you are alive, you will have feelings, whether you want them or not. And all humans experience the same emotions and feelings. It's just that some of us might not be aware that our emotions and feelings govern what we say, think, and do. Likewise, many of our callers are not in touch with their own emotions and feelings because in Asian society, it is not the norm to dwell on feelings, let alone talk about them. In the befriending approach, the primary focus is to explore feelings, while self-awareness is very much about emotional awareness, not just of our own emotions, but also the emotions of everyone else around us. We, as befrienders, are educating our callers to get in touch with their own feelings in the hope that they will realize how their feelings influence their thoughts and behavior. Now that you can see the link between self-awareness and the befriending approach, be very aware that how you feel can affect the way you handle a call as a befriender. For example, when you come for duty feeling happy and relaxed, you'll be more patient and attentive when listening to the caller. Likewise, if you're feeling tired, you might miss hearing important details the caller is telling you and end up asking inappropriate questions. And if you come for duty feeling agitated, annoyed, or angry, it will appear in your tone of voice and response. Self-awareness makes us understand ourselves more. Only when we know ourselves well are we then able to understand our callers better. If our callers are not self-aware, we as befrienders can then befriend them to make them aware of their feelings and how their feelings are affecting their thoughts as well as making them behave in a certain manner. Why the need for self-awareness in befriending? A befriender must develop the skill of active listening and effective communication to be able to respond in an appropriate manner so that the caller understands what has been discussed. Empathy is a crucial skill to have to be an effective befriender. If you cannot empathize, means you're not in touch with your own feelings. Ask yourself why. What happened in your own past to make you want to avoid confronting your deepest feelings? In order to help your callers, you must have self-awareness, emotional awareness, or emotional intelligence to identify your callers' feelings and needs. Remember the feelings and needs list? What are our human needs? How do we feel when they are fulfilled or not fulfilled? We talked about compassion earlier. In our enthusiasm to help others, sometimes we don't realize we are neglecting our own needs and wants, and how this might be affecting our own general well-being. At times, it can be challenging to handle callers who are demanding and manipulative. We must be aware when we are stressed or pressured by such calls and what we need to do to calm ourselves so that we will not respond in an inappropriate manner. If you're not willing or committed to knowing yourself better, or worse still, don't know how, then how are you going to learn more about your callers? Then you cannot be an effective befriender and ultimately not be able to derive fulfillment and enjoyment from being a befriender. When we recognize our own shortcomings, that some things are beyond our control, when we know we are good enough and accept ourselves as we are, we can then treat, respect, understand, and accept others as they are, with all their qualities and imperfections, without judging or discriminating against them. We are now going to look at different aspects of self-awareness through the following: the Johari Window, self-disclosure, and survival strategies like defense mechanisms. Some of you might or might not be familiar with the Johari Window. The word Johari came about when Joseph Loft and Harrington Ingham, two psychologists, laid out a method for individuals to visualize and understand themselves and their relationships with others. The Johari Window is a way to look at your relationship with one other person or one other group. Let's take my relationship now with all of you trainees as a group. So this is my Johari Window. The Johari Window has 4 panes or quadrants. The first pane is the open pane where there is common knowledge. For example, I know and you know that I wear glasses, speak English, and have salt and pepper hair. The second pane is the blind pane where I have no knowledge whatsoever of, for example, my habits, traits, or idiosyncrasies, but which you have because you can see. For example, I might have this habit of stretching my neck that I am unaware of doing, but you notice. Or clicking my pen constantly, which you notice because it's very irritating. The third pane is the hidden pane, where I have knowledge of, for example, my fears, guilt, shame, secrets, but which you have no knowledge of, because I choose not to tell you. The fourth pane of unknown is where there is no shared knowledge, because both of us have not discovered any knowledge about each other yet. For example, I don't know if I've been able to make you understand what self-awareness is, as you have not given me feedback whether you have understood or not. Each pane will vary in size for different relationships. For our relationship now, The open pane would be small because I've not told you a lot about myself, and all you know about me is what you see and hear so far. The hidden pane would be larger than the open because I've not told you anything about my deepest fears, feelings of guilt, shame, anger, and anxiety, because I don't know all of you well enough and want these things to remain hidden. The blind pane would also be larger than the open because we haven't spent enough time together for you to notice or tell me my other good or bad habits, qualities, and traits besides my neck stretching and constant clicking of my pen. The unknown pane would be very large as we haven't had time to discover more about each other yet. This Johari window is called the turtle. The Johari window is used as a tool to gain self-awareness and personal growth. The 4 panes of the Johari window can represent our 4 selves. That is, pane 1 is our public self, the self that we want others to see or know us by. For example, you conduct yourself in an upright and rational manner because you want to be proud of your actions and you want others to respect and be proud of you too. Pane 2 is our blind spots or bad breath area because like bad breath, we do not know we have it because we can't smell it while others can. This is the area where we have no self-awareness, for example, of our habits, emotions, certain behaviors or thoughts. Pane 3 is our secret, private self, where we hide our deepest secrets like our fears, anxiety, shame, guilt, and other vulnerabilities for fear of being hurt or disappointed. Pane 4 is our buried or unconscious self, where we are ignorant or have no knowledge of ourselves. It involves the subconscious mind. This is where the deeper parts of our personality are stored and unknown to others. This is the part that determines our behavior and actions. It also includes things we have forgotten, things that have hurt us in the past, which we have buried deep in our subconscious mind. Relationships are built when feelings are shared and understood. Therefore, potentially, a very important relationship will be formed when we pick up the phone to speak to a caller. We're now going to use the Johari window to look at a caller's relationship with a befriender. Just imagine these 4 cells as that of the caller, because this is the caller's Johari window. Look at pane 1. The first time a caller calls, she might not be ready to reveal too much about herself until she has established rapport with the befriender. Once she's comfortable with the befriender, she'll be more willing to open up and share information about herself. By listening to the caller, the befriender will be able to identify some of the caller's habits or blind spots. Look at pane 2, which the befriender can reflect to the caller as feedback when necessary. Now look at pane 3. The caller might have many secrets or issues she's ashamed of or afraid to reveal for fear of being judged. But once she knows the befriender is non-judgmental, can empathize, and can be trusted, she'll be more willing to reveal her secret or private self. Look at pane 4. With shared discovery between the caller and the befriender and feedback from the befriender, the caller can learn more about herself through self-discovery. You can also use this Johari window to look at your relationship with another person. This is what an ideal Johari window looks like. In our interactive communications with the caller, we try to encourage the caller to open up and share more about him or herself as depicted in the open pane. This would include the caller's feelings, thoughts, behavior, motives, wants, desires, and needs. We're encouraging the caller to be more self-aware or practice self-awareness. By giving the caller feedback, she's then made more aware of her emotions, habits, certain behaviors or thoughts she's unaware of. For example, She might not be aware she's always focusing on the negatives and so always feeling pessimistic, or constantly judging others based on her own values, so frequently disappointed with others, or have a habit of blaming others so that she's absolved from taking responsibility. With constant feedback, the blind spot's self will reduce. Once the befriender has established trust with the caller will then be ready to reveal her secrets or private information. With self-disclosure, the hidden or secret or private self will reduce. Through shared discovery and self-discovery, by asking the caller about her behavior and actions, things she's buried deep in her subconscious mind, and by exploring options with the caller will then be able to discover his unknown or buried or unconscious self. For example, we had a caller who frequently called, complaining about her work colleagues at every job she had. Every time she couldn't motivate her colleagues to improve, or she viewed them as pretentious or not genuine, or they took her for granted and didn't value her, she would quit to seek employment elsewhere. By reflecting her blind spots back to her, that is, when she imposes her values on her colleagues, it causes tension between them, leading to relationship issues. By giving her feedback, the caller then realized the reason why she frequently felt disappointed or let down by others. As we communicated more, she self-disclosed or revealed why she had these values of trying to be better all the time. When young, her mother always compared her to her older brother who excelled in sports and studies. This made her feel inferior, unloved, and insignificant. She felt she needed to keep improving in order to earn her mother's recognition and love. She also perceived or viewed her mother as a person who is fake or not genuine, because in the presence of relatives and friends, she would put up a front and become a totally different person. She also saw her mother as a shallow person because she could not appreciate the good qualities in her daughter, the caller. With self-discovery and shared discovery, the caller then realized it was her relationship with her mother that was causing her to impose her own values on her colleagues. She then learned to accept that not everyone shares her values, and by accepting her colleagues as they are, she can have better work relationships with them. People with large, open, or public self possess a high degree of self-awareness, clarity, self-confidence, and authenticity. They feel comfortable with themselves. This is the relationship we want our callers to have with us as befrienders. The Johari window can inspire us to be more authentic, genuine, and open. This, in general, will help us form deeper connections with others, leading to better and more meaningful relationships. Remember, our hidden or secret or private self is where we hide our deepest secrets of guilt, shame, anxiety, fears, and embarrassment. On a piece of paper, answer the following questions. What do we fear from self-disclosure or revealing or telling others about our deepest thoughts, feelings, and embarrassing behavior? 2. What can we find out or discover about ourselves when we tell others about our true, authentic self? 3. What do we gain or benefit from revealing our deepest thoughts and feelings? 4. What do we get from self-concealment? Or how will it affect us when we keep all these feelings of guilt, shame, embarrassment, fears, etc. bottled up inside us? Pause the video when you do this activity. When you have answered all 4 questions, please remember to bring this piece of paper with your answers to the face-to-face training session on Sunday, the 30th of July, as we shall be discussing these questions further. When life gets tough, some of us resort to certain survival strategies called defense mechanisms. All of us would have practiced denial at some stage in our lives and maybe still do. For example, the doctors treating your father in ICU for a massive stroke tell you his kidneys, liver, and heart are beginning to shut down, but you're not ready to lose your father and deal with grief. So use this defense mechanism called denial to try to convince yourself that your father will recover. It is natural for us to sometimes resort to defense mechanisms to cope with our difficult emotions. We try to deceive ourselves into believing that things are not as bad as they are, or try to trick ourselves into perceiving things in another way. Sometimes our callers resort to defense mechanisms too, and if we recognize they are doing that, we must highlight it to them. Defense mechanisms are natural and normal. They mostly occur at an unconscious level, and people are generally unaware they are using them. Common example of an immature defense mechanism is projection, which refers to unconsciously taking unwanted emotions or traits you don't like about yourself and attributing them to someone else. For example, you have a strong dislike of your father-in-law. You might instead believe that he does not like you, so that you can continue to justify this ill feeling you have towards him. Another common immature defense mechanism is fantasizing. That is, avoiding reality by retreating to a safe place within one's mind. For example, the most ignored girl in class fantasizing herself as a famous pop star with adoring fans. Humor is a mature defense mechanism. It is the ability to point out funny or ironic aspects of a serious situation. For example, when a friend who is a cancer patient was shown an image of dark patches of the cancer in his lungs, he asked the oncologist if they could just be rubbed off with an eraser. Sublimation allows us to act out unacceptable impulses by converting these behaviors into a more acceptable form. For example, a person who experiences extreme anger might take up kickboxing as a means of venting frustration. Or, instead of lashing out at your employees when you are angry with them, you choose to channel your frustration into exercise, music, art, or sport. As a befriender, it is useful to recognize some of these defense mechanisms our callers might use. By highlighting these defense mechanisms to the caller, we are trying to reduce the unknown or unconscious self of the caller's Johari window through shared discovery. I have included some slides of other examples of defense mechanisms in the workbook, so you will know more about them. One of the key aspects of self-awareness is emotional awareness. That is, knowing what emotions you are feeling and why. Realizing how your feelings and emotions influence your thoughts and behavior, and how your emotions and feelings can affect your performance, whether at work or in your own personal life. So, I shall be highlighting 5 main emotions we all have. I shall also be highlighting some ego states which we and our callers take in life, and explaining more in detail what empathy is and how crucial it is in befriending. Self-awareness and befriending is very much about emotional awareness. That is, being aware of not just our own emotions and feelings when we listen to a call, but also those of our callers. This is because to be an effective befriender, you must be able to describe accurately using appropriate words the feelings the caller is having and convey them back to the caller. Many a time, our callers are not able to express their feelings using feeling words. As befrienders, we need to reflect and describe accurately to the caller the specific feeling or emotion the caller is having. Usually, feelings are categorized under 5 emotions. When you have joy, you might feel happy, loved, like the newlyweds, relieved, contented, like the graduates, amused, light-hearted, like the group of friends, proud, excited, like the couple with their child, calm and at peace, satisfied, compassionate, like the boy with his dog. When you're sad, you might describe yourself as feeling lonely, heartbroken, like the girl sitting on the floor, gloomy, disappointed, like the boy with a woolen cap, hopeless, grieved, like the man holding his head with both hands, unhappy, lost, troubled, like the girl lying in bed, resigned, miserable, like the boy lying in his mother's arms. Fear can make you feel worried, doubtful, like the girl with glasses, nervous, anxious, terrified, like the girl clutching her fowl, panicked, horrified, as depicted in the set of eyes, desperate, confused, like the man in white, or stressed, like the man in black. Disgust might cause you to feel dislike, revulsion, loathing, like the couple, disapproving, offended, like the woman looking at her mobile, horrified, uncomfortable, nauseated, like the man in a hoodie, disturbed, withdrawal, aversion, like the man at the bottom. Words you might use when you feel angry include annoyed, frustrated, like the girl in a pink t-shirt, peeved, contrary, bitter, like the girl at the bottom, infuriated, irritated, mad, like the man, cheated, vengeful, insulted, like the crowd. Please familiarize yourselves with these feeling words, because in befriending, we need to identify these various feelings in our callers and be able to describe it back to them. For example, when a caller says, "I was so happy when my 45-year-old daughter finally got married." To paraphrase and reflect, you can say, "You must have felt very relieved and light-hearted when your daughter finally found a husband at her mature age." I've also included in the workbook examples of various types of feelings under various headings, which I find very helpful. Highlight the main feelings, and under each, highlight the feeling words you are most comfortable in using regularly. Example, under sad, if you use unhappy or miserable, then highlight these. You'd be more likely to use the words you are familiar with. Be very aware that there is usually more to anger than meets the eye. Example, you're angry with your wife when she has dinner meetings with her male colleagues because of your jealousy, which makes you feel jealous. Another example, you're angry with your workmates for excluding you from their chat group because it makes you feel lonely and rejected. You might not like loneliness and rejection. For example, You're angry with your siblings for telling Dad you forgot his birthday because you feel ashamed and guilty. You might not have wanted them to highlight this shame and guilt you're feeling. Another example. You're angry with your hiking friends for leaving you so far behind the jungle trail as you are afraid and anxious of getting lost. That is, you have feelings of fear and anxiety of being lost. Last example. You're angry with your only child for not visiting more often because you feel isolated, sad, and hurt. Isolation, sadness, and hurt might be the feelings you have when you are alone at home. Callers will normally only talk about their surface feelings for fear of being judged, or they are truly unaware of their own underlying feelings. Some callers who are not self-aware might not be able to identify what emotions they are feeling and why. As a befriender, you will have to identify the caller's main emotion or feeling, label it, and specify to them the source of that feeling. This skill is called specific labeling of feelings and source. This skill will be shared with you in the next module. According to psychiatrist Dr. Eric Byrne, there are 3 ego states we can take. We all take these ego states, and so do our callers. The parent ego state is bossy, protective, controlling, aggressive, restrains the child and adult. And we absorb this part from our parents, and it can be deeply ingrained. The adult ego state is objective, rational, considerate, assertive, and uses reason to make sense of situations. The child ego state is emotional, childlike, temperamental, passive, seeks immediate gratification, and self-centered. But as a befriender, we must always take the adult ego state of being calm, collected, non-judgmental, neutral, logical, rational, and assertive. You must know when to be assertive so that you would not be manipulated by some of our callers. I cannot emphasize enough that empathy is the crucial skill required to be an effective befriender. But what is empathy? Some of us might not be very clear what empathy is, and if you do not truly understand what this word means, then you would not be able to practice empathy. Watch the video on the next slide, and we shall then discuss further how you can develop this skill.
So what is empathy, and why is it very different than sympathy? Empathy fuels connection. Sympathy drives disconnection. Empathy, it's very interesting. Teresa Wiseman is a nursing scholar who studied professions, very diverse professions where empathy is relevant, and came up with 4 qualities of empathy. Perspective taking, the ability to take the perspective of another person or recognize their perspective as their truth. Staying out of judgment, not easy when you enjoy it as much as most of us do. Recognizing emotion in other people and then communicating that. Empathy is feeling with people. And to me, I always think of empathy as this kind of sacred space when someone's kind of in a deep hole and they shout out from the bottom and they say, I'm stuck, it's dark, I'm overwhelmed. And then we look and we say, hey, you climb down. I know what it's like down here, and you're not alone. Sympathy is, ooh, it's bad, no, you want a sandwich? Empathy is a choice, and it's a vulnerable choice, because in order to connect with you, I have to connect with something in myself that knows that feeling. Rarely, if ever, does an empathic response begin with at least. And we do it all the time. Because you know what? Someone just shared something with us that's incredibly painful, and we're trying to silver lining it. I don't think that's a verb, but I'm using it as one. We're trying to put the silver lining around it. So I had a miscarriage. Oh, at least you know you can get pregnant. I think my marriage is falling apart. At least you have a marriage. John's getting kicked out of school. At least Sarah is an A student. But one of the things we do sometimes in the face of very difficult conversations is we try to make things better. If I share something with you that's very difficult, I'd rather you say, I don't even know what to say right now. I'm just so glad you told me. Because the truth is, rarely can a response make something better. What makes something better is connection.
So, what is empathy? Example, someone says something and straight away you can sense how that person is feeling just by observing their body language and tone of voice. Some call this gut feeling, intuition, or just having sensitive feelers like insects. Having empathy means being able to understand fully the situation the other person is in, seeing it from their perspective or viewpoint and not your own perspective or viewpoint, and then able to communicate clearly back to them the situation they are in, how they are seeing things, and how they are feeling. For example, your disabled friend in a wheelchair says, "It is extremely challenging for me when I must take exams in halls with no ramps or lifts." You are empathizing when you say, "Yes, you're already so anxious and stressed before entering the exam hall, and you have the added worry and pressure of not knowing how or when you would be able to get to the exam hall on time." Empathy is like crawling into someone's head to see with their eyes and feel what they are feeling. There are differences between empathy, pity, and sympathy. You feel pity for someone when you see yourself in a better position than the other person. You feel sympathy when you allow yourself to feel like the other person. You are empathizing when you're willing to connect emotionally with the other person, to let them know, "Hey, you're not alone. I'm here with you. Give me a chance to understand what you're going through. I'll listen without judgment." Always be aware that our emotions and feelings influence our thoughts and behavior. They are all interrelated as depicted in this triangle. So how we feel will inevitably influence what we say, do, and think as a befriender, as well as in our own personal relationships. On top of that, how we perceive things, our own values, our own cultural beliefs, our biases, prejudices, in our own past experiences will also affect our feelings, thoughts, and behavior. As a befriender, it is crucial that you be very aware of all these things in the middle, which can potentially affect how you handle a call. I'm not telling you that you mustn't have these things in the middle, because we all come with these. All I'm saying is that to be an effective befriender, you need to be non-judgmental and neutral. Be aware that some of your values, beliefs, biases, prejudices were given to you by your parents, teachers, and religious leaders as you were growing up. Do you still believe in them? Do they still hold true in your life now? Reflect on these things in the middle, and if they are not relevant or applicable anymore, then let go of some of them. You'll feel liberated when you unshackle from what is dragging you down or holding you back in life. I'll give you an example. When a caller says he suspects his wife is having an affair, it will bring back memories of the fights your parents had when your father suspected your mother of the same when you were growing up. Immediately, you will feel stressed, frightened, worried, distraught, and helpless because you will be transported to those loud and violent times of constant arguing. How will you then be able to listen properly to what your caller is saying? Or another example, a caller who lives abroad says he's furious and frustrated with his parents for preventing him from marrying a non-Muslim who is not willing to convert. If you are a Muslim and your belief is non-Muslims marrying Muslims must convert, how would this affect your response to this caller? In the next module, we shall highlight to you how and what to do when you receive a call that might evoke your own feelings. Here are the learning outcomes of watching this video on self-awareness. Be aware of your feelings, thoughts, actions, and words, not just with your callers, but also everyone else you interact with in your personal life. Be very aware that what you say, do, think, and feel has an impact on not only yourself, but also on everyone else around you. I'll give you an example. Let's say during breakfast at a mamak stall, your boyfriend accuses you of flirting with one of the waiters when you complimented the waiter on his haircut. How will the accusation affect you? If you allow yourself to be drawn into a heated argument, what impact will it have on the other customers? You might try to defend yourself when your boyfriend wrongly accuses you of flirting with the waiter. Naturally, when he's still adamant about his perception, you feel hurt, irritated, frustrated, and angry. All of us usually blame others for making us feel a certain way. But we are responsible for our own feelings, thoughts, and actions. If roles were reversed and your boyfriend complimented the waitress on her hairstyle or dressing, how would you feel? A bit embarrassed at his frankness? A bit jealous? Annoyed? Insecure? Recognize what emotions you are feeling and why. Then try to see it from your boyfriend's viewpoint. He might just be passing a very frank and innocent comment when he complimented the waitress. When you are self-aware, you will think and act in a rational manner. For example, not react to your boyfriend's comments or accusations, but respond in a calm and collected manner. Likewise, as a befriender, when you have self-awareness, you will have the confidence to build trust and rapport with your callers and be able to communicate effectively with them. In the same way, in your own personal life, you will know how to develop meaningful relationships with others. If you're not very assertive, you will not be able to speak your mind honestly and truthfully without fear. As a befriender, you can potentially be manipulated or influenced by your caller to respond in the way the caller wants. In another module, we shall share with you how you can learn to be more assertive. Can I just leave you with these profound words by Lao Tzu? Knowing others is wisdom. Knowing yourself is enlightenment. Thank you for watching. Please take a moment to answer the following multiple choice questions. And if you have any doubts, review the video again. If you have any queries on this topic, Please bring your questions to the face-to-face session. Thank you.